So, good evening, everyone, and thank you, sir, and thank you, everyone, for joining this Sunday for this MEX Talk. So, I would like to invite Aishwarya K V to deliver the welcome note.
Thank you, Rekha. Good evening, everyone, respected Chief Guest, MP Joseph, sir, faculty, seniors, and my dear batchmates. I welcome you all to another MEX Talk session. It is my privilege to introduce our Honorable Chief Guest Shri MP Joseph, who is a former advisor in the rank of Additional Chief Secretary to the Government of Kerala. He is also the Executive Vice Chairman of Vanam Foundations Kerala. He had an illustrious career in the IAS Kerala cadre, starting his career in the state as Sub-Collector Thrissur and later moving on as District Collector Ernakulam, where he also concurrently held charge as Mayor of the Corporation of Cochin for nearly 2.5 years. Later, he was the Labour Commissioner Kerala for the longest ever period for any Labour Commissioner in the state. Shri M. Joseph has spent 20 years in the UN, where he worked in India and abroad in the International Labour Organization. My Driver to Long and Other Tall Tales from a Post-Pol Pot Cambodia is his first work of travel fiction, and the book was launched by Dr. Shashi Tharoor in New Delhi. Apart from that, he has received the Sahamatri Seva Medal awarded by the Prime Minister of Cambodia and has also received citation from the Government of Kerala for his role in leading a team of government to the refugee camps on the Iraq-Jordan border during Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait in 1990 and ensuring the safe return of the Indian migrant refugees in Kuwait back to India. We are very grateful to MP Joseph, sir, for accepting our invitation and marking his presence here. We all are very excited to hear from you. Once again, thank you, sir. Over to you.
Is it time for me to talk?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Aishwarya, for that nice introduction. Thank you, Rekha, Subhashini, for all the time you took to correspond with me on this talk. Well, I think I have unfortunately chosen a completely wrong day for giving a talk on leadership. Today is Valentine's Day, and I'm sure all of you would be rather happy to be cosseted with each other, your boyfriends and girlfriends, rather than listen to a long talk on leadership from me. But unfortunately, when I suggested the date, I didn't realize that I was suggesting Valentine's Day. So first of all, here's wishing all of you a very happy Valentine's Day. May you find your love. Ragini and the National Institute of Technology, School of Management, National Institute of Technology asked me to talk about leadership. We thought of a lot of topics and at last decided on leadership. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about leadership and what it is all about. Well, it's my interpretation of leadership, and every leader will be very unique. Every person who wants to be a leader will also be very unique. So mine is just a perspective, a personal perspective on what leadership is all about. So what is leadership? Leadership is ultimately your ability to influence others, and particularly influence a group of people. And why do you want to influence them? Because you want to accomplish certain goals. You're not influencing them for the sake of influencing them. You're influencing them with a purpose. You have a goal, and you want to influence others around you, groups of people, large numbers of people, depending on where your leadership is, for the accomplishment of that goal that you have, and in the context of the situation that you find yourself in. So ultimately, leadership is how you're able to influence people, and I'll speak about influence a little bit later. Now, leadership has changed over the times. In fact, the ways of influencing people, which leadership is, has changed over time. 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, leaders were influencing people through what they said were their supernatural powers. Leaders in those times influenced people in those times by saying, look, I have supernatural powers. I can read your mind. I can see what you're thinking. I got hypnotic powers. I can put you to sleep. I can tell the future. I can compel obedience to what I'm saying. That's how they influence people. They influence people through fear, through the ability to feel that they have powers which can put people to negative situations. That's how things were, Largely, leadership was through influencing people by telling them that I, the leader, has powers, I have supernatural powers which I can use for your good or I can use for your bad. So you better listen to me. That's how leadership was. But today, leadership has changed. And such supernatural explanations have given way to more rational explanations of what leadership is all about. There's always a bit of irrationality where leadership is concerned. Every leader brings in a certain element of irrationality, but that's beside the point. Today, a leader has to be very rational, because you are talking to today a very rational group of people all across the world. So that is what leadership is. And I believe all of us have a certain element of leadership in us. All of you listening to me, I think there are about 45, 46 of you listening to me at the moment. All of you have leadership skills. How many of you think you have leadership skills? How many of you think yourself as leaders? I don't know whether you can show by raising your hands. How many of you think you are a leader? So take a head count. If you think you're a leader, tap that raised hand sign just to get a clue. I don't see anybody tapping this. I don't see anybody tapping, but maybe my smartphone is not that smart after all. It doesn't matter. I think there's a bit of leader in all of us. Are you a leader? Now, today, with the rise of the social media, I'm sitting here in Cochin and talking to all of you sitting in Calicut and various parts of the state. I believe, I don't know whether you're still studying from home or you've come back to the college. But you see, with the rise of the social media and the ability to communicate instantaneously, we can all be leaders in one way or the other. And I think at the back of our minds, all of you think you are a leader. You should think you're a leader. Perhaps not leaders all the time, because you're not a 24-hour leader, but you all believe that if the situation should so demand, you can become a leader. And that's why you are doing an MBA at the School of Business Management of the National Institute of Technology, because you think there's some leadership quality in you. And most of you, I believe, have played leadership roles sometime or the other, as an elder sister, as a team leader, as a captain of a cricket team, as a captain of some other team. You have all played some leadership role at some time or the other. I'm not going to ask you again how many of you have played, but I'm sure if you look back in your 18, 20, 21, 22, 23 years of life, you can be sure that at some point of time or the other, you have played some leadership role or the other. And all of you know subconsciously that when the time comes, tomorrow, the day after, any time in your life, and when the occasion demands and the conditions are right, you can play the part of a leader. Not maybe it's a situation that demands your presence as a leader, but I'm sure all of you know in your heart of hearts that you can be leaders. Now, we've seen so many leaders across history, and I can cite 100 names of leaders, but some of the greatest leaders, I believe, I think that you and I will acknowledge our leaders are, for me, number one is Mahatma Gandhi. He was a leader who changed history. He was a leader who completely transformed the way we think in the world today. So Gandhi was a leader, Nehru was a leader, Abraham Lincoln was a leader, because if he was not, many of us would still be slaves because of our color. We are not slaves today because somebody like Abraham Lincoln showed his leadership qualities. Indira Gandhi was a leader, Modi is a leader, Rahul Gandhi is a leader, Rajiv Gandhi was a leader, Trump, in spite of the fact that most of us dislike him, was a leader, is a leader, Biden is a leader. So we know a lot of leaders, and the question before us today is, how did they become leaders? Because that understanding will help us also to understand what leadership is. So who is a leader? How do you become a leader? Who is a leader? A leader, very simply put, is someone who's got a certain goal. We have to win this match. I'm the captain, we have to win. I may not be the captain. I may be just a team player, one of the 11. But then I rise to the occasion as a leader because I know that we have to win. I've got this goal of winning this match, and I know how to get there. So a leader will have a vision. It may be the freedom of a country that's been colonized for 150 years, like Mahatma Gandhi. It may be the goal of believing that every human being born in this world is equal and nobody can be a slave to the other. It can be a social transformation of India. It can be building factories like BHEL. It can be a vision of building institutes like the Indian Institute of Technology, the Indian Management Institute, the IIMs, and so on, so that you provide quality managers in the future. But every leader has a goal, and he has a vision of how to reach there. The goal is often very distinct, very indistinct, very distant. It's a goal which, for example, I'm sure when Mahatma Gandhi landed in India from South Africa in 1914, his vision of freedom was very indistinct. His vision of what a free India would look like and how to reach that, 15th August 1947, a date I'm sure which he never had in his mind when he landed in 1914 in the Bombay docks from South Africa on a ship. The goal was clear, but the goal was still the goal was very clear, but it was still indistinct. And yet clearly still there seems to be a contradiction there, but that contradiction itself is what makes a leader. A leader should be able to deal with complexity. But as a leader, he knew that this is a goal that is worth pursuing. It is a goal that is necessary to reach, and therefore he moved towards that. You can all have goals. I can have a goal. Your goal may be a world without hunger, a green world, a green Kerala, a green NIT campus, a green place in your home, whatever. Or your goal might be much larger, as I said, a world free of hunger, or a Kerala free of hunger, or Kozhikode free of hunger, or your locality free of hunger. So many things. Or goals like, I want everybody to be employed in this country, in this state, in this district. Now, your goal as a leader, there was a poet, I don't remember who it was now. I think it was, I don't know whether it was John Keats, but there was this poet, the lines come back to me, but I can't remember who the poet is. One of you can correct me or write the right thing. He said, and I quote, your reach, that is what you can reach, should exceed your grasp. Your grasp is out there, but you should try and reach much higher, or what's heaven for. Your reach should exceed your grasp, or what's heaven for. It's only when you aim for the stars that you reach the moon. Your reach should exceed your grasp, or what's heaven for. And that's the goal, that's a vision that a leader sets. A reach that's beyond us today, a reach that's beyond our grasp today, but a vision that leads him on to that, a vision that leads him on and and he's able to take his followers forward. And that's what you should be in everything that you do as a leader. And you're all leaders, as I said. Your reach, that is what your aim is. Your reach is what you aim, should be more than what you can grasp. You can grasp a mango which is lying, which is hung low, but your reach should be much, much higher than that. So that's what the sign of a leader is. And the goal, for example, I'm quoting Mahatma Gandhi, I'm bringing the example of Mahatma Gandhi again and again. His reach was far beyond his grasp. In 1914, when he started this idea of fighting the British, the goal of independence for a country like ours, from a country where the sun never set because they were so powerful, was much, his reach there was much beyond what he could have grasped at that time. So again, who is a leader? A leader is not only one who has got this vision, but a leader is one who is able to translate that vision into a reality. It's not enough to build castles in the air and say, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll lead my country so forward like this, I'll lead my family like this, I'll lead my school of business management like this. That's a dream. That's a dream is necessary, because dream is what makes us, but the dream is not enough. It's a necessary condition, but it is not a sufficient condition. A leader is one who is able to translate that vision, that dream, into a reality. And how does he do it? He does it by guiding others into achieving that vision, making his vision, my personal vision, your personal vision, Gandhi's personal vision into a common goal, vision of everybody else. Yes, everybody in India wants freedom. Translating his own personal vision into a vision of the whole community, of the whole district, of whole school of management, NIT, of district, of the state, of the country, translating a personal vision, a personal goal that he has into the vision of the community around him, of the people around him. That's what a leader does. And how does he do that? By influencing others. And he does this by example. He shows the way. The Dandi March, I'm going back to the Indian independence movement because that's something we all know about it. And that's one of the most historic events in the history of the world, I would believe. How did Gandhi show by example? Dandi March, the Salt Satyagraha. He led from the front. He walked the 280 miles to Dandi from, I think, Sevagram and Ahmedabad to make sea. He didn't send the others. He was there at the front, leading by example. And he walks the way. And literally in Dandi March, he walked the way. You walk the talk, as they say. And in this case, Mahatma Gandhi's case, he walked the way. And then when you lead by example, you make the other team members feel involved in your goal and also in this process. The Dandi March was a process. The goal was independence. Dandi March was a process to reach there. And you make everybody else feel involved in that process. You must be able to, you must have that. The leader has that drive and the ability to motivate others in situations which are often not favorable. If reaching the goal was easy, anybody could be a leader. It's because reaching the goal is not easy that you need leadership. Because 90% of the time you have the goal, but the conditions of reaching the goal are not favorable to you. And that is when you should be able to keep people motivated, keep your team motivated and say, okay, we will reach there. This is but a temporary setback. The goal is very much there. And we will reach the goal. And using all the resources available to ensure that the outcome is obtained, even in spite of these unfavorable conditions. Now, that's about leadership. Now, let me become slightly more direct with you. Are leaders born or are leaders made? What is your opinion? I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands again because I'm sure you might feel different at the moment. But this question bothers us all. Are leaders born? If leaders are born, maybe I'm not a born leader. Or are leaders made? Can somebody who's not born as a leader transform himself into a leader? Remember that leaders are people like you and me. They were born as very ordinary people. Look at Modi, very ordinary person, born in very ordinary circumstances. But they have certain qualities and skills that others may not have. And you have these qualities, the leader has these qualities, they have these traits, but there is also, they are often thrown into situations where they're able to show their leadership skills. Like there's a flood, the 2018 Kerala flood, the 2019 flood, the COVID pandemic. People show their leadership skills when such situations, critical situations arise. Or when there's so much injustice around you, or when there's dictatorship or colonialism or slavery around you, that you want to show your leadership. In the case of, again, I'm going back to Mahatma Gandhi because it's an example everybody understands. And he's one of the greatest leaders the world has ever seen. So if you want to study leadership, you should study the Mahatma. Mahatma Gandhi's, what was that critical situation? When he was traveling in a train in a first-class compartment with the first-class tickets in South Africa as a lawyer. And a lawyer those days was a very important person. I mean, you didn't get a degree at the bar at law in London unless you were very, very good. And he was a lawyer, he was an advocate, had been called to the bar, he was an accredited advocate, and he was traveling first class with a valid first-class ticket. But in that train, he was thrown off the first-class compartment because the guard said, and that was the situation at that time, that people who are not white in color cannot travel in first-class compartments. They have to travel only in third class or second class. And when he refused to budge, when he said, no, I've got a first-class ticket and color doesn't matter. I have a ticket and that's what matters. I have a paid ticket. They simply threw him out of the train in a station, if I remember, called St. I forget the name. He was thrown off the station onto the platform, and his luggage was thrown out. So that was that critical situation which made him think, is this the life of somebody who's not born a white man, who's born brown or black? So these are the so that I don't think Mahatma Gandhi was born a leader. Certainly not. He was born like you and me, ordinary people. But he had those leadership qualities. And when that critical situation arose, he decided and resolved to show the way. When there's injustice around you, that's when the critical situation, when there's injustice, there's something in you which tells, no, this is the time I should take a stand against injustice, against dictatorship, against colonialism, against slavery. That's when your leadership qualities come out. Right. Okay. Let's analyze leadership a little more clinically. What are the elements that make up leadership? I would put three traits three elements that constitute that make up leaders, and I call them traits, I call them skills, I call them qualities. Now, what are the differences between traits, skills, and qualities? Traits. Let's come to traits first. T-R-A-I-T, traits. Now, what are traits? Traits are inborn characteristics. Traits are characteristics that we are born with. For example, the color of my skin, it's brown or black or whatever, the way you look at it. I can't change it. I'm born with it. I'm born with this sort of a hair, a black hair. I'm born with black eyes. So these are inborn characteristics. There are certain inborn characteristics. The ones I described are physical. There are non-physical traits that you're born with. Height, for example, is a trait. Color of the skin, hair, eyes are traits. I have black eyes. My son has brown eyes or hazel eyes. Cat's eyes. You're born with it. The Nordic races, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Finland, they have blue eyes. They're born with it. They have blonde hair, golden hair as they call it, blonde hair. We have black eyes, black hair. So these are traits we are born with, and these are all physical traits. We are also born with, non-physical traits, mental traits. Some of them are there with us. And these are traits which you're born with, and traits are things which you can't change very much. They are inborn in you. Just like the physical examples I gave, there are non-physical, mental characteristics, moral characteristics that you are born with that you can't change very much. Those are traits. Traits again being those which you are born with. And then there are skills. So the leadership, when you analyze the elements that make up leadership, there are traits, there are skills, and there are qualities. Now I come to skills. What are skills? Skills are abilities or expertise that is learned through practice. Typing is a skill. I learned very long ago when I was young to type with 10 fingers. So I can close my eyes and type with 10 fingers. Some of you with 1 or 2 fingers can type on a smartphone very fast. So that is a skill. Typing is a skill. Driving is a skill. Nobody is born with a skill of driving. You can't drive when you're 3 years old or 4 years old. You learn it at 18. Don't learn before that. You learn driving when you turn 18 or 16. I don't know what the learning age these days. So that is a skill you learn. Speaking a language. I speak Hindi. I speak Malayalam very well. Of course, I speak English. I speak a little bit of French. I speak the language in Cambodia. The book that she referred to, this is the book, My Driver Too Long and Other Tall Tales from Pol Pot, Cambodia. I spent 7 years in Cambodia, so I learn a bit of the Cambodian language. It's called Khmer. So learning a language is a skill. Learning to be a good painter, a good musician. Some of it is, of course, a trait, but it's also a skill that you can learn. Learning to be a good carpenter. These are skills. Now, skills can be learned. That's the point I'm trying to make. So the skills required for leadership can be learned. So there are traits which you're born with, skills which you learn, and then, of course, there are the qualities which come somewhere in between the traits and the skill. Qualities are less inherent, less you're born with than traits, and have to be imbibed more consciously. It's something more or less more or less less inherent than trait, but that one acquires early in life and can be nurtured and developed. So that's what a trait is. Now, examples of trait, for example, being on time, being punctual. You're not born with being punctual. It's not a skill that you learn. It's a quality that you develop. Okay, I will be on time. 7 o'clock is a meeting today. I'll be there at 6:55. I'll be there at 7. Come what may. That is a quality which you're not born with. It's not a skill, but it's something that you develop over time. Being punctual, being polite, saying thank you, saying wishing somebody. Being polite is a quality that you. Smiling is a quality that you develop. I learned to smile. I used to smile a lot when I was young, and later forgot about it because I thought as a collector you shouldn't smile because people don't take you seriously if you smile too much as a district collector. So I learned to be very serious, tighten my face muscles, and look more serious. And then I forgot to smile altogether. It's only when I went to Cambodia much later. In Cambodia, everybody smiles, even in very difficult situations. It's a trait. It's a quality. For them, perhaps it's a trait. I don't know whether it's a trait or a quality, but everybody smiles there. So I learned to smile once again. Learning to stand in a queue, for example, is a quality. Not rushing through, but standing in a queue. So again, to put it in perspective, there are these traits which is an inborn characteristic of a person, such as physical qualities, mental qualities, etc., that you're born with. Then there are skills or an ability or an expertise that is learned through practice, typing, driving, painting, carpentry, and so on, and qualities which come somewhere between the two. For example, a quality that you develop of being punctual, being on time, and being polite. So these three which I think are very important to understand. And you must understand that as a leader, there are some qualities that you may not have as a trait that you're not born with, but that which you can certainly develop. Now, when you speak of leadership, you're all management students. I think it's very important then that you make a distinction between being a leader and being a manager. Being a manager is different from being a leader. Being a manager includes a little bit of leadership, no doubt, but the two are distinct. You might think that being a manager and being a leader is the same thing, but they're not. For example, Sundar Pichai of Google is a great, you might think that he's a great leader, but to me, I would rate him as a first-class manager, not as a leader. Satya Nadella, for example, to me, is a manager. I don't think he's a great leader. Similarly, Cognizant's Francisco de Souza is a great manager, of course. I mean, to be heading Google, you have to be a great manager, but that does not make you by itself a great leader. On the other hand, Modi, for example, is a great leader. He might be a very poor manager. He is left managing to Shah, for example, Amit Shah. Modi is a great leader, but may not be a manager. Abraham Lincoln was a great leader. I don't know whether he was a great manager or not, but he was certainly a great leader because he had this vision. And he drove his country towards that vision. And he did everything to realize that vision of abolishing slavery. Otherwise, we wouldn't remember him 150, 160 years after he died. Mahatma Gandhi, to me, was the greatest leader of all time. And I'm sure he would have been a very poor manager. I don't know. But as a leader, he was the greatest. So there is this, all that I'm trying to tell you is that there is this difference between being a leader and being a manager. You're all training yourself to be a manager. That does not necessarily mean that you're training yourself to be a great leader. The two may be different, though I must at the same time underline and add that every manager is also a leader. But every leader may not be a manager. So what's the difference between a leader and being a manager? They're different, as I told you. But the main difference between the main difference between the two is that leaders, for example, have people who will follow them. Mahatma Gandhi had crores of Indians following. He would say non-cooperation with the British, and the whole country would not cooperate with the British. He would say, come with me and follow me to the Dundee March to make salt in the sea. and thousands upon thousands and tens of thousands would follow him. So there are leaders have followers, people who follow them. Managers, on the other hand, have people who simply work for them. When I was a collector, for example, I had lots of people working for me, in the collectorate and the various departments of the government. But if I thought I was a leader, then I was not. I was just simply managing them. I was not leading them. And the moment I left and got transferred, I was posted as Labor Commissioner of the state. They were not following me. They were obeying the next collector, the person who came after me. So that is what you should understand. Whereas Mahatma Gandhi, you can throw him in prison. He spent about 9 or 10 years in prison. It doesn't matter. People still followed him. Whereas I, as a collector of Ernakulam, I was also the mayor, as she said, of Cochin. The moment I was transferred out and posted as Labor Commissioner, nobody was obeying me in the collectorate in Ernakulam. That is because I was managing the collector's office. I was simply a manager. I was not really a leader. Mahatma Gandhi, on the other hand, you could have exiled him to the Andamans and still people would have followed him. He was in jail, as I said, for 9 years and people followed him. Managers, therefore, what do? They plan. They have this plan before them. They organize things. Of course, they lead because you need a bit of leadership skills to be a manager as well. And they control. Let me quickly tell you some of the other differences between managers and leaders. All managers have to be leaders in one way or the other, as I said, in one sense or the other, because you have to be a leader to manage. But all leaders, do not have to be managers because there are others who will manage it for them. I gave the example of Modi and Shah. Managers, as a collector, for example, we have managers have formal powers. Your job description is given, who will report to you is given, your controls over them is given, but leaders have no formal powers. Mahatma Gandhi had no formal power. As a collector, as a head of the HR tomorrow, you will have formal powers. You will have powers of transfer. You can transfer people of this grade, this grade, this grade. Those are formal powers conferred on you. But leaders have no formal powers. What is the power that Mahatma Gandhi had? No, not formal power at all. The power that we had was completely non-formal, informal. The power that we had, as I said in the beginning, was that he had the ability to influence people. The power to influence people is the greatest power. If I can influence you by the way I talk, by the way I lead, by the way I behave, then I don't need any formal powers. Mahatma Gandhi was a leader because he was able to influence a whole country, 30, 40 crores of people at that time. Everybody followed him because he was able to influence them. Power ultimately, as Hans Morgenthau, one of the great writers on international relations, wrote, power is the ability to influence people. When you're able to influence them, you have power. Influence can be many ways. If you are a military leader, you influence them by saying, do this or I'll kill you. You can have political power and say, okay, you do this or I'll transfer you or I will, I'll send you to prison. But the leader, the true leader, who is one who influences others through ideas, through practice and precept, through leading the way, the ability to influence ideas. Colonialism is outdated. This country is a free country. Freedom is our birthright. So that is the power. The real power is the power of influence. To tell people that that is wrong and this is right. Follow me because I lead you to the right. That's the power of influence. And that is the ultimate power. Not the power of transfer, not the power of demotion, not the power to hire and fire, but the power to influence people. And that's what a leader's power is. So, therefore, in the case of managers, because their powers are formal, they give directions, whereas leaders don't give directions. Leaders don't say, do this. They ask questions. They ask questions and people provide the answer. Is this what you want? Do you want our country to continue as a colony? So that is what a leader does. He does not give directions, do this, do that. He questions. Is it right to levy a salt on tax in this very poor country where people can't afford a meal a day? Are you going to put a salt on tax? Is what he asked the Britishers. A salt on tax means you're taxing every person in this country because everybody needs salt. And when he asked that question, and the British realized, especially after the Dundee March, that this was a foolish tax. You can't tax salt because everybody needs it. It's a birthright. Everybody needs salt. And therefore, they withdrew the salt tax. So leaders ask questions. Managers use authority, but leaders motivate. Motivate through their talk, through their behavior, through their example, etc. Managers tell people what to do this, do that. You go there, you do this, you'll be there for 8 hours. Leaders will show others what to do. They walk the talk. They set examples. They lead by examples. In the case of managers, a manager reacts to change. The Bombay Stock Exchange crashes, your company's share go down, and you react to it. Leaders, what do? Mahatma Gandhi created change. From a colonial India, he created independent India. They create change. Leaders create change. Managers, I'm not saying everyone, try to become heroes. But what does a leader do? He does not become Mahatma Gandhi never wanted to be a hero. They create heroes around it. They create people who will sacrifice for that cause. They create people in the Dundee March. If you've seen the film Gandhi by Attenborough, I don't know whether you've seen it. You must see it. The influence that Gandhi had, people willing to be beaten up by the police because he put an idea before them of freedom. So leaders create heroes around them. They don't necessarily become heroes. They become heroes, but they don't want to become heroes themselves. They create heroes. Managers exercise their power. As a collector, as they go there, come back. That's a manager's exercising the power. A collector is a manager. But leaders develop power with the people. They give power to the people. That's the difference. Now, very quickly, what are the qualities that you if you want to be a leader, that you should possess? Number one is that vision, a visionary thinking, a long-term goal. This is what I want to achieve. This is what I want I and my followers to achieve. That long-term goal is always present. And that long-term goal is very important. For example, I am again going back to our independence movement. In 1929, the Indian National Congress, 1929, the Indian National Congress had its All India AICC session, All India Congress Committee session. It's a huge thing. Everybody, all representatives of the party come from various parts of the country. They had the 1929 AICC session at Lahore. And in Lahore, Mahatma Gandhi put forward this principle that what India will need is Purna Swaraj, complete independence. We don't want to share power, the British. Earlier there were proposals that the British will continue by sharing power. The British will look after, for example, foreign policy, they'll look after international trade, etc. And Indians will be given the power to, things like education, things like state police, etc., or irrigation. Agriculture will be with Indians, but international relations, foreign policy, the army, navy, air force will remain with the British. That was called sharing of power. But Mahatma Gandhi in 1929 said, no, that's not what we want. We want Purna Swaraj, complete independence. You leave us. We'll take care of ourselves. In 1929, when he said that, Britain was at the height of its power across the world. The sun never set on the British Empire. And he said that. He had the courage to say that, and people laughed at him. They said, how can the British, how can you say Purna Swaraj, will they ever leave India? They're so strong. And if they leave India, India will collapse. We need the British to rule us for some more time. But he said, no, Purna Swaraj, that is the goal. So the vision was set. People laughed at him. But 1929 to 1947, it was just 18 years. Within 18 years, India attained that goal which many thought it will never have. So you have that vision, and you should have that commitment to the goal. In Mahabharata, Arjuna, when he was as a child practicing archery, I think it was Dronacharya, who was his teacher, asked him as he was going to shoot the arrow, what do you see? All the others who were with him, all the other students with him, they said, we see the tree, we see the leaves, we see the house there. Somebody said, we see the bird. Only Arjuna said, I see the beak of the bird, because he had been asked to hit the beak of the bird. That commitment to the goal, that complete Focus on the goal. That's very important. That's another quality of a leadership, of a leader. Commitment, focus on the goal. Persistence. You will fail often before you reach that goal. Abraham Lincoln, I was told, failed in many elections. He failed in the Panchayat election, he failed in the state elections, he failed as governor of a state, he failed to win a seat in the US Senate, he failed to win a seat in the House of Representatives of the US. And then every time he stood for elections, he lost badly. And yet he persisted. And then he finally stood to become the president of the United States of America, and he won. And he was able to stay with persistence to your goal. And the ability to influence, which I said earlier, and then you should have the confidence that you will achieve your goal. If you don't have the confidence, your followers are not going to have the confidence. So that confidence, the correctness of your goal, the correctness of your vision, a hungry free world, a hungry free Kerala, a hungry free India, a hungry free district, a hungry free village from where you come from, that goal, large or big, the complete confidence that you can achieve it, that's very important. Maybe you will not achieve it tomorrow, maybe you will not achieve it the day after, but the confidence that you will achieve it tomorrow or the day after or the year after, that confidence is very important to achieve them. And then you should generate the trust of your followers. You can't tell one thing to them and do something else. That's what some of our political leaders unfortunately do. You have to be consistent. You should walk the talk. If you tell them that this is what they should do, that's what you should do. That's very important. So you must hold the trust of your followers. Even if your followers are just 5 or 10, that trust is very important. And then that is how you pass on that vision of a hunger-free panchayat or NIT, or the School of Management of NIT being the #1 management school in Kozhikode or in Kerala or in India. That is how you pass on the goal to the people who are around you. And of course, you should be able to embrace complexity, because situations change from minute to minute, from second to second, from day to day, and things are very complex. And a leader should be able to embrace complexity, should be able to accept it and understand that, okay, you have this plan, this vision, that vision remains immovable, immutable, like Arjuna looking at the beak of that bird, but then situation might change, a wind might blow, and you should adjust for the wind. But the right rain might fall, you must adjust for the rain. The bird might move, you might adjust for that movement. So the ability to embrace this complexity. What is complexity? Complexity is this continuously changing situation. These qualities of a leader can be nurtured and developed. These are the qualities that you're not born with them. You can nurture them. They are qualities that you can develop. A person can be assisted in imbibing these qualities consciously. And that's where you can develop yourself as a leader. So some of the skills that leadership possesses, these are the qualities. These skills are the ability to set goals. You must have clear goals. You should be able to withstand and deal with conflicting situations, as I said, complex situations and conflicting people. You should be able to solve problems. If possible, you should be able to speak effectively in English. I mean, in whatever language, not English, I'm so sorry. You should be able to speak effectively. But there are so many leaders. Mahatma Gandhi was not a great speaker. There are so many leaders who were not able to speak very well, but you should be able to communicate effectively. That's very important. Communication is different from being able to speak. Communication is, the non-verbal communication. Everybody may not be endowed with the ability to speak well, but there are other ways of communicating with people. Mahatma Gandhi communicated very well, even though he was not a great speaker. But he was able to communicate through his writings, through his behavior, through his smile, through the actions. He was able to communicate. And of course, you should be effective decision makers. And and some of the other skills that a leader should possess should be a commitment to excellence. No compromise with excellence. There should be nothing ordinary about a leader. And then most important, there is something that you should not have, and that's what I'll spend the next few minutes on. You should not have what I would call head trash. Trash in the head. And what is trash in the head? I'll come to that after I say that. The other two skills that you require is this ability to delegate and the ability to manage your anger. A leader who displays anger can never be a good leader, because people are put off by anger. So you should be able to, anger management is very important. So, but then these skills can be developed in individuals through training, coaching, and guidance. So skills can be developed. The earlier qualities that I mentioned can also be developed So even though you're not born with, and most of us, none of us, most of us are not born as leaders with those traits of leadership. Even if you're not, you can develop the qualities of leadership. You can develop the skills that's required and become leaders. A word about head trash. What is head trash? Trash in the head. Trash means waste. Waste in the head. One quality a leader should not possess is trash in the head. Now, what is trash in the head? They are thought patterns of thinking and emotional tendencies that hinder my or your ability to respond in a productive and professional way. They are negative thoughts in the subconscious. That there are inner dialogue that I have with myself, negative inner dialogue. Things like, oh my God, I can't do this. I asked you to raise your hand, none of you did. That's a head trash. A negative thought. No, what will people think if I raise my hand? The fear that people may laugh at you, the fear that you may fail. This is the head trash. And this is the head trash that a leader should not have. Because ultimately, head trash is damaging. It's negative. It's a feeling that I can't do it. I could be wrong. That people will laugh at me. I might fall. I might lose the election. Remember Abraham Lincoln lost 10 elections before he stood for the president of the US and won. So head trash drives leaders into taking poor decisions, no decisions at all sometimes, or take longer time to take a decision than they should. And one of these head trash, very quickly, number one, fear. And fear, okay, if I take this decision, people will laugh at me, I might fail, and so on. So you avoid taking a decision or you delay taking a decision, and that prevents your leadership qualities from coming out. Second head trash, arrogance. I did this, I did that. So this feeling that once you have succeeded in a few steps as a leader, then this arrogance sets in. And you're not then able to achieve your goal. You've come some way as a leader, and then this arrogance sets in. We have seen it in so many of our leaders. I'm naming no names. The arrogance that leaders possess after they win an election or a couple of elections, and they think that they are God's own right hand. Arrogance and egocentric behavior becomes a blind spot and a roadblock into the health of the team that you're leading. Insecurity. Now, how does this insecurity head trash reflect itself? Others do a good job, you want to take the credit. I did it. It's not you who did it. It's the other person who did it. And then you become defensive. No, that's not what I said. You become defensive. Then you tear others down. Oh, he did it wrongly. That was not the right way. This is insecurity. This is reflection of your insecurity. And that's a head trash that you should avoid. And when you have this, when you grab credit, when you become defensive, when you tear down others, then ultimately your colleagues disengage from you. They leave from you. And then, of course, the next one is, guilt. Doing things you know is wrong and you know that you should not do, and you do it because of pressure from others. You know there are certain things as a leader you shouldn't do, but there's a pressure. Somebody phones up, your your friend insists that you do this and you do it. And this feeling of guilt, that is also a head trash. Anger, I spoke about it earlier. Overreacting to problems, exploding, getting angry, transmitting fear throughout organization. Anger is a head trash that a good leader should avoid. And then control. Yeah, you want to control everything. Control is for managers. If a leader, you don't control, you refuse to let go. When you control, you stifle the creativity of others and you prevent growth. So control is a head trash. You are insecure, therefore you want to control. So control is a head trash. Then paranoia. What is paranoia? Paranoia is the fear that others may be plotting against you. That, your friend is plotting against you. That other team is plotting against you. The board is plotting against you. The employees are plotting against you. The investors are plotting against you. And this feeling of paranoia, this is another head trash that you should you should avoid as a leader. 7 of them. I'll quickly repeat. Fear, arrogance, insecurity, guilt, anger, control, and paranoia. But individuals like you and me can be helped to manage them. So some of the things, I'll finally wrap up in the next 3 minutes or so. Some of the things you could do to be a good leader. How can you be a good leader? Try and develop the qualities that I mentioned earlier that a leader requires. Try and train yourself. Skills are developed through training. So train yourself to be on time, on or whatever, this quality, the skills that is required of a leader, to be an orator, to communicate properly, even non-verbal communication, no, not even, mostly non-verbal communication. If you can train yourself to speak well, you can be a leader, but train yourself, if you can't speak well, or you're not able to train yourself to speak well, to communicate in a million other ways, through a smile, through a pat on the back. Somebody did a good job, a smile when you see somebody, a namaste. So train yourself in the skills that are required to be a good leader. Try and manage and overcome the head trash, the 7 head trash that will hold you back from your full potential. So finally, remember, you can yourself encourage that self-awareness, instill self-correction, and drive through managing yourself, self-management, to be a good leader. Now, most of the leaders that I spoke about, whether it is Mahatma Gandhi, whether it's Modi, whether it's Rahul Gandhi, they developed themselves, or they are developing themselves as good leaders. Rahul Gandhi may have been born into a leadership family, but you can see that he's trying to train himself into becoming a leader. Modi, over the last 2 or 3 or 4 decades, has developed himself into a good leader, trained himself. You do that. Modi is a Gujarati, he speaks Hindi like somebody from UP or Bihar. Training yourself to communicate. Mahatma Gandhi, similarly, he was also a Gujarati who spoke Hindi so well. So you can, therefore, remember that you can develop those qualities, you can develop those skills by which you can become a good leader. So the ultimate point is, everyone can become a leader. Everyone can turn themselves into a good leader. So you can also make a leader out of yourself. Every one of you listening to me, you can become a good leader. Obviously, Nehru was not born, maybe Nehru was born with a golden spoon, but Gandhi was not born a leader. Modi was not born a leader. Manmohan Singh was not born a leader. Trump was not born a leader. He made that empire himself. Biden, Rahul, Sonia, they were not born as leaders, but they developed themselves into leaders. And the point of all this is that every one of you can be a leader, that every one of you can make yourself into a leader. There are no more any hereditary leaders. You may be born into a family of leaders, but no one will recognize you as a leader unless you yourself turn into one. And the short point of all this half an hour or more talk is that you can develop the qualities and the skills and train yourself with the skills to make yourself into a leader. You too can be a leader. Start today. Focus on your goal, on your vision. Never waver. Don't lose your focus. Develop the skills, develop the qualities, lead from the front. Be a servant of the people whom you lead. Walk your talk. Influence others. Remember, influence is power. Pass on your goal to others. Create heroes around you. Never try to be a hero yourself. Create heroes of others. Develop trust in others. Develop empathy. And most importantly for a leader, remember to embrace complexities, because the world is a very complex place. And finally, as I say, as James Bond would have said, I'm sure you've seen James Bond. James Bond would have said, never say never again. You can be a leader. Thank you so much. And happy Valentine's Day once again.
Thank you so much for this wonderful session, sir. So if we have any questions, we can take it up.
Right, of course.
Do we have any?
I have
Good
a
evening,
question.
sir.
Okay, my question is, I hope I'm audible.
Your name is on the screen, but I'm not able to read it fully.
My name is Arpit. So previously, I was the one who contacted you regarding
right,
the session.
yes. From Trivandrum.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Sir, my question is, a leader is someone who I feel is a great motivator also, because he need to motivate the people around him in order to lead them. So, in your words, what as a leader can feel the motivation? So, for a leader, what kind of a motivation as something that can be given from uh, maybe his colleagues' perspective, or surely we are going into a corporate sector. Almost 75-80% of the people here are going into the corporate sector. So we are going to be under a leader. So what kind of motivation from our side can be given to him? Because a leader is not a single entity, as I believe. So what kind of a motivation motivates a leader to go forward?
I think many of the things I mentioned already for a leader up there is also what is required for your leadership as managers. As I said, a leader may not be a manager. Others can manage for him. But every manager has to be a leader. So many of the things I mentioned to you about leadership is required for a manager. And motivation ultimately comes from being able to influence others. And how do you influence others? By many of the things I already said, by showing by example, by not taking credit for what your team has done, by managing your head trash. As a manager, many of the times head trash becomes an issue. What I said, anger, you want to control the team, you want to control others. You know, it's a subordinate senior relationship. So control is very much in our mind. Getting over that, we can't be a leader with control, because then your team does not function as it should. And then the paranoia that others might be thinking badly about you, or scheming against you, the feeling that. So the 7 head trash I mentioned is very important for you to sort of get over, and then even as a manager, you must have certain goals. Those goals will not, of course, be large. It's getting independence for a country or abolishing slavery, certainly no. But you will have your goals. You know, making, for example, the School of Business Management of NIT the second best or the third best or the best institution in Kozhikode or in Kerala. So you must have that goal, and you should be able to convey that goal to your team. You can't achieve this by yourself as a manager. So the leadership qualities that I mentioned, even though I mentioned in the context of Mahatma Gandhi and India's independence movement, in its own subset applies to every manager. In its own, in its own lesser, smaller, microscopic way, is applicable to every leader. Focusing on setting our goal, focusing on that goal, not wavering from it, developing the skills that are required of a good manager, leading from the front, walking your talk. You are their leader, no doubt, but as a manager, the tendency to feel yourself superior to them comes much more. So to be a team leader who is, I mean, the word servant has been used too many times, so I don't know. I wouldn't use the word servant, but to be one of them, one of the team, even though many of them may be much junior to you, so that they feel more of a camaraderie. You have a collector, bro. You must have a manager, bro. Somebody who feels, somebody who the rest feel is a part of them, who they can share their problems with, their frustrations with, etc. You may not be able to always solve their frustrations, but sharing helps. So these are also very important because that is how you motivate a team. You motivate the team, may be small, 5 people, 10 people, 100 people, 200 people, I don't know. But you motivate them by these qualities. You're passing on that goal. We must achieve this goal within 6 months, within 1 year, within 3 years. We must make our team the best or whatever. So passing on that goal, and then creating heroes around you. When others do something successfully, when you tell them, or when as a part of the team it is decided that XYZ will do this and XYZ does it, treating him as a hero, patting him on the back or her on the back and saying you did a wonderful job, a smile, a word of recognition before the rest of the team. If somebody recognizes me in front of my colleagues, I feel so happy. If somebody, Arpit, recognized you in front of 60 people, they will feel very happy. You will feel very happy. And the next time you will you will redouble your efforts. And then the ability to embrace complexity, to be because things change, situations change by the day. Last year, this time, we never knew that COVID would lead to lockdowns and working from homes and studying from homes. But that's what it is. So understand the world is an ever-changing place. The only thing that never changes or changes the change itself. So all those qualities I spoke about a leader, though I spoke about it in the context of Mahatma Gandhi and Lincoln. Not every one of us can be Mahatma Gandhi's and Lincoln's. I'm sure one or two of you can, certainly yes, and try to. But as the manager of a team, every manager, remember, as I said, is a leader. Every manager should have these leadership qualities that I explained. Does that answer your question, John?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hello, sir. This is Ullas.
Can you mention your name, whoever is talking?
This is Ullas. Can you hear me,
Ullas.
sir?
I can. Thank you,
Yeah.
Ullas.
Yes, sir. Sir, I have a doubt. Do you believe the Idi Amin, Hitler, and Gaddafi, all people are leaders, or they are just with controlling powers?
Come again, can you repeat that question? Hitler and?
Do you believe Hitler, Gaddafi, and Idi Amin type of people are good leaders, or whether they are controlling others with their power?
They're certainly not good leaders. They may be leaders, but they are bad leaders, aren't they? I mean, when you kill 60 million people, 6 million Jews, as Hitler did, you're a bad leader. Leadership is for good. Power is for good. As if you get into the IAS, if you become a manager, and you are endowed with power, that power should be the power to do good. If the power that you get is used to kill people, maim people, hurt people, even within your small team as a manager, HR manager, if you use your power as an HR manager to do bad to others, you're a bad leader. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Power and the power that you get, whatever leadership, as prime minister, as chief minister, as minister, as collector, as HR manager, as CEO, whatever power you have should be the power to do good. If you don't use your power to do good, then you are not a leader. You're a bad. I mean, you don't kill so many people and destroy the world as Hitler did, as Idi Amin did. In my speech, I mean, all this talk I did, I never mentioned Hitler. I never mentioned Idi Amin. It never. When I was thinking about it, it never came to my mind to think of them, because they are not leaders. A leader is one who does good, who is able to do good. And the power that you get as a leader in your, wherever you are, as an assistant manager, as a deputy manager, as a finance manager, should be used to do good. And that's what a leader is. So there's no doubt. I mean, a leader, by definition, is a good leader.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, then I would like to invite Shivani Vanam to deliver the vote of thanks.
So, well, we are moving towards this end of the session. I would like to thank Mr. Shri M.P. Joseph, IAS, Chumripsa, sir. So, and thank you for your valuable time and for your insights on this great day. And I would like to thank each and every faculty and all my dear friends. You made this great session like grateful. And thank you for your time on this special day. And the session is so informative, right? So, well, I would like to request you all to subscribe Sir's channel, MP Joseph, on YouTube, so you can find more insights and motivations. Thank you once again, sir.
Thank you so much. The channel it's a YouTube channel. It's called MP Joseph. Thank you so much. Pleasure talking to all of you.
So I've dropped a link in the chat box, so you guys can subscribe to his channel. So it will be more comfortable. So thank you, sir. We are glad that we had you this evening.
Thank you, Rega Subhashini. It's been a pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay.